Is this the ultimate junk wax era sports card? The most famous rookie card of its era in the highest grade with a PSA 10 autograph as a bonus. Based on prices, some people think so. But what's funny is that until 2019, this card didn't exist at all, and it wasn't until 2 years later, in 2021, that the card was even seen as a valuable commodity, generating sales of up to $50,000 per example. But then, within a matter of months, prices for the card took a sharp downturn. So how did this particular card rise and fall so quickly? After all, it's a $2,000 card with a $300 autograph and a $120 grading fee that morphed into auction prices in the tens of thousands of dollars. That's the story I sought out. This was a rare opportunity to research a vintage card from the time PSA first started grading it and following it as it gained tremendous value. It's a story that encompasses many facets of the modern sports card hobby, raising questions about the grading process at PSA, as well as how the biggest PSA dealers leverage the card market to the disadvantage of collectors and buyers. This is a wild ride. Buckle up. The story starts with Ken Griffey Jr. The mystique around this card begins with a history that Jr. just didn't sign many autographs at all. This March 2018 article states that Griffey used to sign for fans, in person, as an active player, but after he retired, he stopped almost entirely. There was no easy way for fans to get his autograph, as he did no public signings. But that quickly changed. This listing in October 2018 from Powers Sports Memorabilia mentions that Griffey was doing a mail-in autograph session that collectors could participate in for $200 an item. I found another listing on Facebook from that same time period where a company called E5 Sports was doing a similar mail-order autograph session with Griffey for $200 as well. Today, both TriStar and Mill Creek Sports offer mail-in autograph sessions with Ken Griffey Jr. at a fee of $300 per card. Against this backdrop, the first example of a PSA 10/DNA 10 89 Upper Deck Griffey card appears in a PWCC sale on eBay in January 2019. The listing notes the pop as one of one, and it sold for over $9,000. At that time, a base PSA 10 rookie was selling for under $450, so the autograph added a 20x premium. Here's where I think tracking the sales history of these cards is so illustrative. That same card, the first 10/10, went back to auction with PWCC on eBay less than 3 months later. PWCC noted that now it was a pop 1 of 2. This time the seller took a $2,800 loss. Then there were no auctions on the card for about 16 months. This one came to auction next in September 2020. It's an oddball because the autograph grade is only a 9, but PSA includes it as part of the pop of the 10/10 cards. It sold for only $1,500. But then 3 months later, in December 2020, the buyer consigned the same card to Probstein, where it sold for $6,600. Early 2021 is where we start to see a recognition in the hobby of the tremendous value of these 10/10 cards. It took about 2 years after that first sale. It's unclear what the catalyst was to make the values jump so much so quickly. I don't know if there was some type of organized marketing campaign to hype up the value of high-grade autograph rookie cards or not. It's a real mystery. But in January 2021, PWCC held an auction for this card on eBay, and it went for a staggering $55,000. I believe the pop on the card was only 4. The sale was a big deal at the time, and it triggered discussion on the Collectors Universe forum, with some questioning whether it was shill bid and actually paid for. But the card has never surfaced for sale again, so it appears to be a legitimate sale. Then 2 months later, the buyer of that first 10/10 also consigned their card to PWCC, which resulted in another $55,000 sale. But that sales momentum couldn't be sustained. 4 months later, in the summer of 2021, the next 10/10 hit the auction market, and it sold for only $30,400, a 55% reduction in price. And this is where the market for the Griffey card really changes. The very next month, in August 2021, someone consigned another 10/10 to Probstein. That sold for even less, for $20,300. And you can see what happened next. Like clockwork, new 10/10s came to the market at the rate of 1 a month, and then in October 2021, 1 a week. 4 of the Probstein ones came from the very same submission order, number 7. Behind the scenes, a couple dealers were sending PSA dozens of these signed Upper Deck cards, and the pop exploded more than 10x. Today, the card is selling in the $7,000 to $8,000 range. This chart provides a pretty graphic illustration of what happened to prices as all these 10/10 cards came back from PSA and were gradually released into the market. If the chart looks to you like a crypto rug pull, you're right. The first buyers of these cards, I'm sure, had no idea that the pop of this card was going to increase tenfold within a year. I'm sure they had no idea that there would literally be dozens of these cards regularly hitting the marketplace. The $50,000 or even $20,000 to $30,000 the early buyers paid for these first cards will never be recoverable. So who is submitting these 10/10 auto cards to PSA? Here is where recreating the PSA submission records of these cards is really eye-opening. At the time I edited this video, the pop of the 10/10 was at 49, and no doubt it will continue to rise in the months and years ahead. But when I did my research in May 2022, the pop was 46. I was able to use some of the previous auction sales to recreate 13 submissions to PSA to positively identify 44 of these cards by their certification number. All this information is available in a public spreadsheet, linked below. Let's take a look at who's sending these cards to PSA. The sales chart indicates that most of these originate from either 4 Sharp Corners or an anonymous consignor with Probstein. The Probstein sales mostly fall between the period of August 2021 and April 2022. There were 7 Probstein cards that came from only 2 submissions, ones I'm calling number 7 and number 13. Submission number 7 had 16 10s in it. More on that in a minute. Probstein sold 5 of those cards. One more was consigned to PWCC. But 2 of the sales from that submission came from Mill Creek Sports, the latest one on July 18, 2022, for $8,750. And 2 more cards from that submission are currently listed for sale on Mill Creek's website. I mentioned Mill Creek earlier. They are one of the 2 companies that offer mail-order signings for Griffey. As I edit this, Mill Creek has over 300 autographed Griffey cards for sale on their website. There were also a number of sales for Mill Creek in submission number 13 as well, another submission where Probstein also sold one of the 10/10s. It's reasonable to conclude that Mill Creek was the one sending these cards to Probstein. Along with 4 Sharp Corners, they are the 2 official PSA dealers responsible for grading out the vast majority of these 10/10 Griffey cards. I wanted to take a look at some of these submissions to PSA next, because I think they illustrate how valuable cards move through the grading process. The first couple of submissions of these 10/10 cards seem very much like a submission you or I might send to PSA. Just a handful of cards, several different kinds, not just Upper Deck Griffies. When these cards were submitted, there wasn't an awareness that a 10/10 Upper Deck Griffey was a particularly valuable or grail card. But this changes dramatically after those $50,000 sales in March of 2021. The 4th submission, by 4 Sharp Corners, was probably submitted to PSA sometime in mid-2021. It has 15 signed Upper Deck Griffey cards in it. I think it's fascinating here to look at how successful dealers like 4 Sharp Corners and Mill Creek are in getting 10/10 grades from PSA. I'm going to look at 2 measures to evaluate the submissions: the percentage of 10/10 grades that are awarded, and the ratio of 9s given for every 10 for each submission. This is a measure I call the 9-10 ratio, and it's a way to measure how reluctant PSA is to award 10s when they are given a mint card to grade. If you haven't heard of the 9-10 ratio before, I've linked a video above that explains it. Here's a master chart of all the submissions so that you can dive into this on your own through the linked spreadsheet. First, I'm looking at the percentage of 10/10 grades that PSA gave out for each of these submissions. This is an imperfect measurement because we can't control for the quality of cards the submitter sends to PSA. The submission that really stands out to me is the 7th one, the one I'm attributing to Mill Creek Sports. They sent PSA 37 signed Upper Deck Griffey rookies, and 16 of them came back at 10/10, a staggering 43%. Critics will point out that this submission might not be that unusual because Mill Creek has been submitting cards to PSA for a very long time, and maybe they only sent PSA the best of their best cards for this submission. We can test this theory using the 9-10 ratio. In addition to the 16 10s, Mill Creek also got 14 9/10 cards, 6 8/10s, and 1 5/10. If we look at the aggregate of PSA's Pop Report, When they receive a mint condition autographed Griffey Upper Deck rookie, PSA gives that card a 9 6.8 times more often than they award a 10. So the 9-10 ratio of the dual-graded Upper Deck rookie is 6.8 to 1. Now look at Mill Creek's results from submission number 7, 0.88 to 1, meaning that for every mint card Mill Creek sent PSA in that order, PSA actually gave out more 10s than 9s. That's highly unusual in the inverse of what one would expect based on all of PSA's grading decisions for this particular card. There's so much data in the link spreadsheet that for time's sake, I can't go through every submission. I encourage you to look through it on your own time. Instead, here are a couple charts that summarize what PSA is doing with these submissions over time, testing if PSA is grading this card differently after the value went up. The first chart is simply looking at the percentage of 10/10 cards in each submission, measured over time. You can see here how the later submissions have a lot fewer 10/10 cards than the earlier ones did. In fact, after submission number 7, PSA has been awarding a lot less 10/10 grades, ranging from 9 to 20% of the submission. But this chart could be misleading, as the submitters may have also sent in a lot of non-mint cards. We can test this again using the 9-10 ratio for each submission. The second chart shows the 9-10 ratio of the submissions to PSA measured over time, with the red line indicating the 6.8 to 1 ratio of 9s to 10s that PSA has given out for all of these cards. A data point below the red line indicates a time when PSA was much more lenient in giving a mint card a 10 versus a 9. Data points above the red line show when PSA was tighter in giving out 10s. The data here indicates that in the earlier submissions, PSA was much more likely to give a 10/10 grade to a mint card than they were after submission number 7. Over time, it seems that PSA got tighter in giving out 10s, but not always. The last submission, number 13 by Mill Creek, shows PSA gave out only 2 9s for every 10. One last point about these 13 PSA submissions that all contained an 89 Upper Deck autographed Griffey card getting a 10/10 grade. What I found surprising and startling is that these high-end cards are not being awarded to average collectors or dealers. Look at the number of cards submitted in these orders, between 10 and 20 autographed Griffey Upper Deck rookies. The grading and autograph fees for even a 10-card order would run between $3,000 to $4,000. What you can't see in the chart, but what I found, is that these orders also contain dozens more other autographed Griffey rookie cards, from the Topps Traded, Donruss, Flair, and Score sets too. Some of these submissions have over 100 autographed Griffey rookie cards in them. Based on the Pop Report, we know that about 383 mint Upper Deck signed Griffey rookie cards have been graded by PSA. So it's reasonable to think that ordinary collectors, like you and I, are sending these mint cards in to PSA. But the 10/10s don't show up as originating from submissions you'd see from an average collector, something you or I might send to PSA, where there might be a couple of these Upper Deck cards mixed in with some other cards like we saw in the first 3 submissions. After the card became extremely valuable, at least 3/4 of the 10/10s I found were awarded to just 2 PSA dealers, 4 Sharp Corners and Mill Creek. The data around the 10/10 Upper Deck Griffeys presents a very cautionary tale for collectors. The earliest purchasers of these cards either had no knowledge of or didn't check the population report to see how many of these cards were graded. They had no idea what was being touted to them as rare and unique was in reality about to explode in population, as dealers were putting together submissions of hundreds of signed Upper Deck cards to send to PSA. Collectors couldn't have foreseen how many of these cards would be listed for sale in 2021 and 2022. Dealers, of course, had this information, but were under no obligation to disclose it to the public. And what does the future hold for this card? Ken Griffey Jr. is likely to be signing these cards for years to come. That makes these cards, even now, a risky proposition. As of August 2022, only about 28 of the 46 10/10 cards had been sold at auction, but it also appears that PSA has slowed down considerably in awarding 10/10s, and that the days of a rapid population increase, like in 2021, are over forever. In addition, 4 Sharp Corners and Mill Creek seem to be holding these cards back from the market as prices fell. There had not been a single eBay auction for this card in the 6 weeks prior to me editing this video, and as of September 8th, 2022, there is not even one listed for sale on eBay by 4 Sharp Corners or Mill Creek. It's really too early to tell when the price will bottom, and it might be safe for collectors and investors to purchase one for themselves. Then there are questions for collectors regarding whether they should attempt to grade one of these cards for themselves. Do they even have a fair shot of getting a 10/10 from PSA? The data would indicate it's extremely unlikely. Another point to consider is if this research data applies to how PSA grades modern cards too. Specifically, is PSA more liberal with granting 10s on the earliest submissions of the latest hot rookie card they receive versus submissions they get after these cards have established a high value? I'll have to leave that question for another researcher. I guess if there's one thing that got reinforced to me through this research, it's that PSA and the big dealers have a lot of the power, resources, and information in the hobby, and the rest of us are just trying to make the best decisions we can with limited and incomplete knowledge. It does make me wonder how often this phenomenon happens with cards that aren't as dramatic or easy to research as the autographed PSA 10 Upper Deck Griffey rookie. What are your thoughts on the 10/10 Upper Deck Griffey cards? Anything here surprise you? Please share your thoughts and comments below. If you're new to the channel and like this type of content, please consider subscribing or watch some of my previous videos. Thanks for watching.